Michigan came away with relatively light penalties following its sign-stealing scandal from their 2023 national championship season. Jim Harbaugh, who was head coach at the time, essentially escaped punishment completely by moving back to the NFL to coach the Chargers. But Urban Meyer thinks the NFL should step in where the NCAA failed.
There's an elephant in the room here, boys, though, that no one's talking about. When Jim Tressel was fired at Ohio State and he was given a suspension, Roger Goodell, commissioner of the National Football League, came out and said that we're going to honor that suspension. And you remember he went to the Indianapolis Colts to work in the replay room or something. The Colts, because of the respect they had for the NCAA and the suspension, do you realize suspended Jim Tressel? So he was unable to perform his duties for the first 6 games of the year for the Indianapolis Colts. I think we all know the answer.
Yeah.
Any chance that Roger Goodell and the NFL? Of course not. Yeah. And I don't know why.
That happened prior, right? So they came up with this ruling for Tressel, right? And then he got hired, right? Because Harbaugh he's been there, and the investigation was still open. So I'm like,
yeah.
All right, look who joins us. Paul Feinbaum, hello. Paul, should the NFL punish Harbaugh for his actions at Michigan?
Kimberly, that is the first time in my entire life I've ever agreed with anything Urban Meyer has said. He is 100% correct. I'm in shock that I actually like something that Urban is thinking about, but he's right. And Jim Tressel did virtually nothing in that case, if you remember. It was about tattoos. It was absurd. And what Jim Harbaugh has done is highway robbery. I mean, he stole a national championship. It's simple as that. He used Connor Stallions, and then he lied, he obfuscated, he misled. He's truly beyond hypocrisy. And this is the same guy, Chris and Stephen A. and Kimberly, that shot arrows at everybody a couple of years earlier. He accused Nick Saban of cheating. He accused Kirby Smart. He just blanketly accused everyone. And now look at him holding up a banner. And as soon as he gets the bonus, he hightails it out of town with no penalty. Now, do I expect anyone at the Chargers or the NFL office to do anything? Of course not. But it would be nice if somebody acknowledged it. It would be nice if Harbaugh even addressed the situation, which, of course, he has not and will not.
All right. Chris, you heard very strong words, beyond hypocrisy, and stole a championship. What do you think about what Feinbaum had?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't think that Michigan stole a championship. Ultimately, they had to go out there and play the games, and sign stealing has been happening since the beginning of football. So it's something that's always going on. But the bigger issue that I have is that the NFL is a private business and a separate entity than the NCAA. And I just don't believe in punishing the LA Chargers and their current staff, their current players, that organization, that fan base for something that happened years ago at the collegiate level. I don't believe in trying to dole out retroactive punishment for something that took place at a lower level of sport. And so when it comes down to the business of the NCAA cleaning up their own house and handling their own discipline, I think this is a situation where they missed the mark in terms of being able to levy a punishment on Jim Harbaugh. And the best thing that they can do is what they did do, which is the 10-year show cause, the $30 million fine toward the university, and suspending, assistant head coach, now current head coach Sharon Moore for games into the future.
For one game?
Well, he's suspended this year and then next year in 2026 as well.
Self-imposed 2 games on his own, and
correct.
Next year 1 game. Okay, but let me say this. I'm going to go with Paul on this, and I'm going to go with Urban Meyer on this for this reason. Urban Meyer is alluding to precedent set by the National Football League. He's not asking them to do something new. He's basically challenging them to be consistent. If that was something that you've done before to a previous coach, you understand where the NCAA has brought a heavy hand down upon somebody and you honored what the NCAA has said and you set that precedent, then why would it be different now? That's my only thing. Normally, I would agree with you, CC, on its face. I get that part. You're in the NFL now. That's an NCAA problem. But because this precedent that Urban Meyer deferred to, that's what I would say, okay, well, then why did you do it then, but you wouldn't do it now? That's the only reason that I would say that. Having said that, I would say this as well. You might not want to strip
Hard here in the
Michigan of
NFL.
its
Well,
national
Michael
title
Parsons
per
is
se,
still without a
but it
contract
is a
extension.
worthy
Time
discussion.
is running short
It is a
for Jim
worthy
and the Ducks
discussion where
before the start of
there
the
should
season,
be
and there
discussion over the
remains no
national airwaves
contract
impugning
between the Cowboys
the
and their
integrity of the
defensive
football
star.
program
While
at that
Jerry
particular
Jones
moment in time.
refuses to
Even if
talk
you
to
don't
Mike
strip them of it,
continues
you should have a
to the
good question
press.
about it. You should have an open discussion and an open debate about it. You should bring attention to the fact that you tried to cut corners en route to winning a national championship, especially when you opened your mouth and said other people were doing stuff, like the Nick Sabans of the world and others like Paul Feinbaum pointed to. Again, it's the precedent that he set by doing that. In other words, if you're sitting up there quiet as a mouse and you just coaching the team, right, and you just doing your thing, but other people are doing stuff and you ain't paying any attention to that, and then you figure out a way to go out there and beat them, that's fine. But when you do something and it's what you accused others of doing before, you got caught. Well, then now, I mean, that's that Lance Armstrong effect, which is what I call it. When Lance Armstrong was cheating en route to 7 Tour de France titles and stuff like that, what did we say about him? Yeah, it happens all the time in cycling. We get that part, right? But what annoyed you to no end about him, what made him a pariah for the ages, was the systematic efforts he exercised in an effort to take other people down who were telling the truth about him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's one thing for you to be cheating, and then you get caught. Take your money, go home with your cheating ass self. We'll live our lives, and that's fine. But it's another thing entirely when you excoriate somebody else for pointing out what you knew you were doing. That's the difference. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, as it gets back to Jim Harbaugh, it's one of those situations where, okay, yeah, the Chargers organization should have suffered, but in the same breath, yo, Harbaugh, we got to make sure it ain't John, it's you that we're talking about, because that's your big brother who's is universally revered in NFL circles and what have you, and you back here in college, and this is the kind of stuff that you was doing with 10 years show cause penalty. You know what I'm saying? You ain't allowed back in the NCAA before 2038. The university that you represent is talking about a $20 to $30 million fine, scholarships, recruiting dollars, all of this stuff has been compromised, and you just gonna be in the NFL sideline just chilling like that happened. Nah, there's something wrong with that pick. You know what I'm saying? Something wrong with that pick.
I want to get Paul. Paul, jump back in here. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, listen, this whole thing stinks. And I realize nothing is going to happen because that's the world we live in. But Chris, you act like Michigan has suffered here. They haven't suffered. They wrote a check. So what? This is a very wealthy university. If you don't believe it, just ask any Michigan graduate anywhere in the country. They'll tell you how great they are. And this is not a school that wins a lot of national championships either. I think they've won 2.5 national championships in 70 years. I think Alabama won that many just walking down the street yesterday. But the point is, no, they didn't really steal it. They didn't go into a bank and steal the championship. But it feels like they did something tawdry. I mean, they did something against a bunch of no-name schools that they didn't need to do. But that's who Jim Harbaugh is. And don't forget one other thing. They were already in an NCAA window. And as Stephen and I talked about the other day, if this had been 25 years ago, they'd shut this program down. But the NCAA has no teeth. It has no enforcement power. And quite frankly, this is the last time we'll ever hear from the NCAA because as of now, they don't even have jurisdiction over rules violations.
Yeah, Paul, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not trying to defend Jim Harbaugh for standing on some type of moral high ground when he was at the University of Michigan, pointing fingers at everybody else. Everybody understands from an integrity standpoint, it's wrong. But in competition, especially at that level of sport, everybody is doing it. I remember playing in the NFL as a player, sitting in a meeting room, watching practice film of a division opponent that I was going to play that following week. We saw what happened with Deflategate. We saw what happened with Spygate. Nobody discounts Tom Brady's greatness or Bill Belichick's greatness. Nobody's going to deny that those individuals won those championships. And so when we start talking about doing the right thing and being honest and being somebody of integrity, I get what you're saying. That doesn't exist at high-level football, whether it be college or whether it be pro. Now, as far as the precedent that was established with the Jim Tressel suspension, I would also remind you, Jim Tressel wasn't the head coach.
That's fair.
Jim Tressel was a senior assistant, and he decided that he wasn't going to take the job until they got to week 7 with the Indianapolis Colts. I believe Jim Caldwell was the head coach.
Yeah.
This is a different situation altogether. It's a disproportionate impact if Roger Goodell were to step in and suspend Jim Harbaugh.
What about the argument that could be made because he was just an assistant, as opposed to the head coach, that what Jim Harbaugh has done has impugned the integrity of the National Football League more so than Jim Tressel would have? Because, again, you're the face of a franchise. You're the head coach. You're the representative. You know, rules and regulations come with our league as well. And the fact that you are in a head coaching position, such a prestigious position in the National Football League, one of only 32 people, you know, can fill that position. What about that argument?
Well, to that, I would say when we start talking about precedent, look at the precedent that the NFL established when they dealt with Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots with the different scandals that they were facing.
Spygate, Deflategate.
Exactly. They took draft picks, they exacted heavy fines, but we weren't talking about an extended suspension of the head coach or anybody on the coaching staff.
Fair enough.
We'll leave it there. Paul, thank you as always for
Thanks,
the
Paul.
colorful words.